Well, I continue with our discussions here. I was actually trying to see if it's time for me to go to the newsroom. So, well, I still have a couple of minutes before we do that. We'll be joining Victor, top of the hour. Well, but now we have Mr. Ekpo Nta. He joins us. He is the chairman of ICPC, and we'll be looking at the fight against corruption this morning. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, the Minister of Aviation did mention your agency. He said, well, they're trying to see what they can do at the airports, and we have comments and mails, loads of them from people talking about corruption, especially even in the aviation sector, as well as pilfering. People get their bags opened up and people take things. So they said this is also as a result of corruption. If you're not corrupt, you wouldn't even steal out of someone's bag. But how concerned are you when you talk about the fight against corruption, restricting it to the aviation sector now?
Well, I'm happy the minister has set the tone in respect of corruption at the aviation sector, with specific emphasis at the airports. The very first impression you have when you go into any country starts from the airport, right? And that is an issue that every Nigerian who is traveling would feel very sore about. I travel a lot, and I had decided that we must do something about this, and we had started an investigation of the sector through surveillance in order to know exactly where to deal with the issues that arise. And so today we have decided to use the UN Anti-Corruption Day, which is celebrated today, to publicly bring this initiative to the traveling public. And that includes not only Nigerians, but foreigners who are coming into our country, because if you have something that would be abused, people from anywhere would abuse the process. And that's precisely what we're focusing on today.
So the question now will be, what exactly will be corruption in the airport? Is it that, somebody directly asks for a bribe, or is it that somebody is offering a tip? These kind of things happen within the airport premises. What exactly will be corruption according to ICPC standards? Because we want to believe that there will be rules and regulations here.
I'm very happy you used the word tip. And I assume that a tip is in respect of a service that has been offered and it is gratuitous. But when you begin to demand for a tip, it begins to take on the color of a bribe. And so in order not to have you have problems of distinguishing whether this is a tip or a bribe, we do not even want tips to be given at the airports, because that now become a value judgment. You are at the airport officially, and because you're there officially, you're getting a pay. And so you do not need to be tipped for a service that you have already committed your time to. We hear that in other parts people get tips. You get tips in restaurants. This is not a restaurant. And like I do, you travel to other countries of the world. Do you give tips? When you get into Dubai, do you give tips at the airports to anybody? These are very clear infractions against the regulations.
Mr. Nta, some people would say, why are you focusing on the aviation industry? There are other areas where corruption is going on. Why would you want to go into the aviation industry to begin to fight corruption when there are bigger areas you could focus on?
Well, let's look at it this way. If you want to address an issue, do you go stand on the street and begin to fight everybody? You have to design what you want to do. What we're doing in ICPC is to take a sectoral approach. I've looked at other sectors, and this particular sector is the one that is attracting our attention currently. And with what the minister has said, it's something we have decided to key in with him to assist the aviation industry. It's a sectoral approach. There's no sector you would say, okay, let me clean this up first before I go to the other sector.
You know, it's a small, I want to use the word fry we're talking about now, but you know, corruption, let's talk about the big ones, because I have, by training, I realize that when we talk about tips, the people you don't give tips to are people in uniforms and government officials. By all means, even the man who helps with the baggage at airports, even the biggest of airports in the world, you are allowed to tip them, but government officials and those in uniform, you don't get to tip them. That's just by the way. But when we talk about corruption, what about those in their offices? We have so many agencies, parastatals in the Ministry of Aviation. What else would amount, taking the same question Mark asked, would mean corruption to you when you get to look into their books or their conduct?
Well, let's see kind of definitions. If I offer you something to stop you from doing your legitimate duty of checking my bags at the airport, that is a bribe to induce you to stop you from doing your legitimate function, and that comes under our act. You can also give an inducement to get somebody to do something the way you want it done. So these are very fine distinctions, but the ultimate is that it's to the disadvantage of regulation. It is to the disadvantage of the country in order to give advantage to the person offering that service.
Well, then we'll come back to you. Let's quickly go to the newsroom. We'll take the headlines and we'll come back to close on this particular one, because a whole lot of air travelers and passengers and those who use the airport facilities would love to know more about these. And we wouldn't let you off without us getting to know what exactly you're doing in your agency, because some would say it's been, well, sleeping somehow, so they would want to know what you have done so far. Well, Victor, it's your time now to, well, refresh us with the news.